When the laws of the world fail, the shadows take over to settle the final score. Witness the cold and calculated path of those who refuse to let betrayal go unpunished. Subscribe today to see how justice is truly served when the sun goes down in our world.
Sign this tonight, or I will make sure you never set foot in this building again. My brother said it quietly, almost gently, while my mother stood 3 feet away and looked at the floor. That was the moment I knew, not suspected, knew. Before I tell you what I did in the 48 hours that followed, and what happened to every single one of them, I want to ask you something. Drop it in the comments. What is the one thing you did for family that cost you more than you ever expected to pay? I read every single one. I didn't cry in that conference room. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at my brother, then at my mother, then at the document sitting in front of me, a co-signer agreement for $460,000 of debt tied to his failing restaurant group, and I said, very calmly, no. He slid it back across the table. You owe us this, he said, after everything this family has done for you. I picked up my coat. I walked out, and in the elevator going down I stood completely still, and let myself feel the full weight of what he had just said. After everything this family has done for you. I am 31 years old. My name is not relevant. What is relevant is that I am a licensed CPA. I have been working in forensic accounting for 6 years, and I have spent the better part of my adult life doing math that my family never wanted me to look at too closely. That changes tonight, I thought. I hit the lobby button. The numbers above the elevator ticked down. That night I went home to my apartment. The one I pay for myself, in a city I moved to alone, with a degree I funded through 3 part-time jobs because my parents had drained my college savings account when I was 17 to cover a down payment on my brother's first restaurant. They told me it was a loan, that I'd be paid back with interest. I was not paid back. There was no interest. When I brought it up at 22, my mother said I was being transactional. That was the word she used. Transactional. I sat down at my kitchen table with a mug of tea I didn't drink and opened my laptop. I wasn't panicking. Panic is what happens when you don't have a system. I have a system. I started with what I already knew. My brother, who I'll call by his role in this story, my brother the golden one, had opened his first restaurant at 24 with seed money I still don't fully understand the origin of. It did well for 2 years. Then he opened a second location, then a third. The third one bled money from the start, and instead of closing it, he opened a fourth. By the time I was sitting at that kitchen table, he owed money to 3 separate lenders, 2 vendors, and according to a very discreet conversation I'd had with a family friend the previous spring, also to someone my parents had borrowed against their home equity to loan him. My parents had taken out a home equity line of credit for him without telling anyone, and now the document he had just asked me to sign would have made me personally liable for the consolidated debt, restructured under a new LLC. One that, I noticed when I looked at the paperwork before I pushed it away, listed my name as a co-founder. I had never agreed to be a co-founder of anything. I went to the kitchen and poured out the cold tea. I made a fresh cup. Then I sat back down and opened the state business registry. The LLC had been filed 8 months ago. My name was on it. I stared at that screen for a long time. My name, my date of birth, my home address, all of it. On a business registration I had never seen, never signed, never discussed. I cross-referenced it with the county recorder. My signature, or something meant to look like my signature, appeared on the articles of organization. I felt something settle in my chest, cold and very, very still. This wasn't a family disagreement anymore. This was fraud. I knew what I was looking at. I'd worked cases like this, for clients, from the outside. Forged co-founder documents, phantom liability transfers, shell companies built to absorb debt before a principal goes insolvent. I had spent years helping lawyers untangle these exact structures for people who came to me after the damage was done. I had never once imagined I would be the person on the inside of one. But I also knew something the people who built this structure did not know about me. I knew exactly how to take it apart. My phone buzzed. My mother, I let it ring. It buzzed again, then a text. Call me. Your brother is very upset. You made a scene. I had not made a scene. I had said one word and left, but in my family refusing to comply has always been classified as a scene. I put the phone face down and kept working. By midnight I had pulled the full filing history of the LLC, identified 2 other entities connected to my brother's restaurant group, and found a tax document where the LLC had reported income using my social security number, without my knowledge, without my consent, and in a way that would have made me liable for taxes on earnings I had never received. That was the second crime. I opened a new document and started logging everything with timestamps. Dates, amounts, filing numbers, discrepancies. This was not the first time I had done this kind of work at midnight. It was the first time I had done it about my own family. At 12:40 my phone rang again. Not my mother this time, my brother, I answered. You really embarrassed Mom tonight, he said before I could speak. I need you to tell me, I said, when exactly you filed the LLC with my name on it. Silence. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. The date on the articles of organization is March 14th. I need to know who notarized that document, because the signature on it is not mine. More silence. Then, you've always been like this. Everything is a problem with you. Everything is a crisis. I'm going to ask you one more time, I said. Did you forge my signature? He hung up. I saved my document, backed it up to 2 separate cloud drives and went to bed. I didn't sleep well. but I slept. In the morning, I called a woman I had worked with 2 years earlier, a forensic specialist who had since moved to a position consulting with the IRS's Civil Enforcement Division. We had stayed in touch, the way you stay in touch with people whose work you respect. Professional emails, occasional lunch when she was in the city. I had referred cases to her. She had returned the favor. I told her I needed guidance and I told her why. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "How solid is your documentation?" "It's solid," I said. "Send it to me. All of it. Don't contact the business registry yet. Don't file anything. Don't send a demand letter. Just send me what you have." I sent it. Then I did the hardest thing I have ever done. I called my mother back. She answered on the first ring. Finally, she said, "Do you know how worried I've been? Your brother couldn't sleep. I've had a headache since last night." "Mom." I kept my voice very level. "I need to know if you knew that my name was put on the LLC without my permission." She paused. Just long enough. "Your brother needed a cosigner with good credit," she said. "We discussed this. We did not discuss this. I never agreed to anything. You would have said no." Her voice shifted, just slightly, something between defensiveness and accusation. "You always say no. You don't understand what this family has been through. You have a good job, you have your apartment, you have your savings. Your brother is trying to build something. We needed you to just be a part of this family for once." I had heard variations of this my entire life. "You've so much, and you never share it. You're selfish. You're cold. You think about yourself." What I understood now, sitting in my kitchen with the morning light coming through the window, and my documentation backed up in 2 places, was that those accusations had never been about my character. They had been about keeping me too ashamed to ask questions. A person who believes she is selfish does not ask where her college fund went. A person who believes she is cold does not demand answers about a signature on a document she never signed. They had built the accusation and installed it in me young, so that when the moment came I would be too busy apologizing for who I was to notice what they were doing. "I know about the HELOC," I said. She went quiet. "I know about the tax filing under my social security number. I know about the forged signature. Mom, I need you to understand that what happened is not a family problem anymore. It's a legal problem. Don't you threaten me?" she whispered. "I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you the truth. That's what I do." She started crying. Real tears. I have known my mother's real tears my entire life, and I could hear that these were real, but I had also spent 31 years confusing my mother's pain with my responsibility to fix it, and I was done making that mistake. "I have to go, Mom," I said. "I love you, but I have to go." I hung up. She called back 4 times. I let it go to voicemail. 2 days later, my contact at the IRS Civil Enforcement Division called me. She was measured and professional, the way people are when they've seen a lot and they don't want to alarm you prematurely. But I've worked in financial investigation long enough to hear what's underneath, measured and professional. "The documentation is clean," she said. "The identity-based tax filing is actionable on its own, separate from the forgery, and there's something else." She paused. "We've had a flag on the primary entity associated with your brother's restaurant group for about 4 months. This connects to an existing review." I hadn't known that. "What does that mean for timeline?" I asked. "It means things will move faster than they normally would," she said. She told me what I needed to do, a formal signed complaint notarized, with the supporting documentation. She told me not to discuss it with anyone inside my family. She told me the process might take weeks, or it might take less, and that I should not expect to be informed of every step. I filed the complaint that afternoon. Notarized, documented, submitted. Then I went to the gym, came home, made dinner, and watched television. I don't know what I watched. I couldn't have told you the next morning. But I needed to do something completely ordinary, because if I sat still in my apartment with my thoughts, I was going to fall apart, not from guilt, but from grief. Because even when the people who hurt you are wrong, even when what they did is documented and provable and illegal, losing them still costs you something. The family I had wanted them to be. The mother who would have chosen me. The brother who would have built something honest. You don't grieve those things once. You grieve them in pieces. I gave myself that evening. One evening. Then I got up the next morning and went to work. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday, my brother called me from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up. Something made me. "They came to the restaurant," he said. He sounded like a different person. The performance was gone, the confidence, the ease, the slight condescension he'd had his entire life. What was left underneath sounded young and very scared. There were 2 of them. They took the computers. They took everything. I didn't say anything. "Did you do this?" he asked. "I filed a complaint about documents that had my name on them without my consent," I said. "That's accurate. I'm your brother. I know, we're family. I know that too. How could you do this to us?" There it was, that word, us. Like family was a team and I had defected. Like the debt belonged to all of us, but the consequences were only supposed to land on me. "You put my name on a business without telling me," I said. "You filed taxes using my social security number. You forged my signature on a legal document. Those aren't things I did to the family. Those are things that were done to me." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Mom is devastated, I know. She hasn't eaten in 2 days." I closed my eyes. I knew this move. It had been used on me my entire life. My mother's suffering, my mother's worry, my mother's sleepless nights, deployed as a weapon whenever I failed to comply. The goal was always the same. Make me responsible for her pain so that I would do anything to stop it. I hope she eats something, I said. I mean that. He hung up. My mother did not call me that day. She called me 3 days later when she had had time to figure out what version of the conversation might still work. I just want to understand, she said. I just want to talk. Okay, I said. Talk. You have to know that none of this was meant to hurt you. We were in a desperate situation. We didn't know what else to do. You were the only one with the kind of credit, the kind of stability. So you forged my signature instead of asking me. We knew you'd say no. Then that was your answer, I said. No. You had my answer. You just decided to take what you wanted anyway. We're your family, she said, and her voice broke. We love you. Doesn't that count for something? It is an extraordinarily painful thing to love someone who uses that love as a lever. To know that the love is real. And I believe my mother loves me, in her way, in the only way she knows, and to also know that it has always been conditional on my usefulness, that when I stopped being useful, the love became a tool for getting me back into position. It counts for a great deal, I said. Which is why this is hard. But love doesn't make fraud legal, and I'm not able to pretend it does, she cried. I stayed on the phone. I didn't hang up on her this time. I let her cry and I said I was sorry she was going through this, and I meant it. But I didn't recant, I didn't soften, I didn't take it back. When she finally ran out of things to say, she asked, Is there anything I can do to fix this? You can cooperate with the investigation, I said. That's the only thing that will help at this point. She didn't respond to that. She said she needed to lie down. We said goodbye. I stood at my kitchen window for a long time after that call. The city was doing what it always does, moving loud, indifferent, alive. I had a meeting in an hour. A client file open on my desk. A life I had built carefully, year by year, entirely by myself. That was sitting right there waiting for me to come back to it. The investigation moved on its own timeline after that. I was not kept informed of every development, as I had been told I wouldn't be. What I learned piecemeal, through my contact, through public records, eventually through a brief call with a civil attorney I consulted on my own behalf. My brother's restaurant group filed for bankruptcy protection 6 weeks after the audit began. The shell entity, the one with my forged signature, was dissolved as part of the proceeding, and the liability I had never agreed to was formally removed from any association with my name or social security number. The IRS tax issue was corrected, the record was amended. My brother faced civil penalties, and a formal referral to the state attorney general's office on the forgery. I don't know exactly what came of that referral. I know he hired an attorney. I know the process is ongoing. I know that whatever happens, it won't be fast. My parents lost the house. Not immediately, not all at once. But the home equity line they had taken out for my brother had been secured against the property, and when the debt came due and there was nothing to cover it, the bank moved forward. My mother called to tell me. She was not cruel about it. She was exhausted. I know you did what you had to do, she said. She didn't sound like she believed it. She sounded like someone saying the words they know they're supposed to say. I did, I said. I wish things had been different. I do too, Mom. I really do. That was 2 months ago. We haven't spoken since. My brother hasn't called again. There's an aunt on my mother's side who texted me once to tell me I had broken the family, and I wrote back a single sentence. The family was broken before I found out about the documents. She didn't respond. I'm not triumphant about any of this. I want to be clear about that, because I think there's a version of this story that people expect to end with the protagonist feeling vindicated and light. Some kind of dramatic catharsis where justice arrives and suddenly everything makes sense. That's not what it feels like. What it feels like is quieter than that. It feels like setting down something very heavy that you've been carrying for so long you forgot it wasn't part of you. Your back aches where it was. You feel the absence of the weight before you feel the freedom from it. My credit is clean. My name is clear. My savings are intact. My apartment is small and I like it that way. It is entirely mine, paid for by my own work, and no one has a claim on any corner of it. I started therapy in the middle of all this. Not because I was falling apart, but because I was realizing for the first time that some of the things I had always believed about myself, that I was cold, that I was transactional, that I had to earn my place in rooms I had a right to simply be in, were not observations. They were instructions, installed by people who needed me to believe them so that I would stay manageable. I am not cold. I am careful. There is a difference, and it took me 31 years and a forged signature to understand it. Last week I went to see an old colleague for coffee, someone who has known me for most of my career. She asked how things were going. I told her I'd had a complicated year. She nodded the way people do when they can tell it's bigger than what you're saying, and she didn't push. We talked about work, about a case she was consulting on, about a restaurant we'd both been meaning to try. Normal things. Good things. On the way home I stopped and bought groceries, standing in the produce section with a basket over my arm, picking out a bunch of cilantro and deciding what to make for dinner. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happy, exactly. Not relieved. Something more basic than that. Present. Just here, in my own life, with no debt that wasn't mine, and no guilt I hadn't earned, and no signature on anything I didn't agree to sign. That's what it feels like on the other side. If you've ever had to do the painful thing to protect yourself from people who were supposed to protect you first, if you've ever been called selfish for refusing to be stolen from, drop free in the comments, and share this if it helped you see something more clearly. I'll be reading every single one.